Is there a limit to my speaking time? So I think I can just use this microphone. Thank you all for being here. I'm grateful to particularly to the organizers. Maybe that's many of you, but certainly Ben and Mayo and Fernando, who's back in Brazil. I had fun today, and I'm just deeply moved you're doing this, and I'm particularly moved that my own PhD advisor Peter Masters showed up. It's just fantastic. I'm grateful for all the time we spent together, and today I just want to ask myself the question: what did I learn all these years? And so I do have some advice that I've sort of kind of applied to myself also, and I'll tell you some things I'm proud of. I'll tell you some advice, and then I'll just tell you a couple of stories from business school. Now that we're at it, so let me just begin by saying, my parents, if you are listening online, hi mor og far. To my family in Denmark, I'm thinking of you, and we are a few people in the US from my family. There's my brother here in Los Angeles, there's my cousin in Iowa, and another cousin's daughter who's at Harvard at the moment for a visit. And then of course there's my wife, Tong, sitting over there, and maybe I should tell some stories about Tong, but there's also my son, who is a student at Cornell majoring in computer science at the moment, and with some luck, he's also listening. It's just been a joy being married to Tong for many years. So not only am I very happily married, but she's also sort of my lucky charm. So I'll give an example. Christian Grothoff and his wife came to visit us for a few days, and we drive down to the beach on a day of a beach volleyball tournament, and we find a spot to park, no problem. It's always like that driving with Tong. We always find a parking spot. And then there's my son. He's one of the things I'm proud of. He's a member of the Glee Club at Cornell, which is the men's choir. And so it's very convenient because Cornell does a lot of streaming of the Glee Club performances. So Tong and I can go and watch our son online every once in a while to see how he's doing. And also he is the webmaster of the Glee Club. And as just to tell you, they have a very good address. They are gleeclub.com. So it's not just a Glee Club, it is the Glee Club. So maybe enough about my family. So I want to say that, as a professor, I think our job, all of us as professors who are professors here, our job is to educate students who are better than us. And so at least I want to point out one thing I'm proud of with you. I'm sort of proud of so many things about all of you. I look around at my former students and I think, oh, there's a person who is better than me in this dimension. Here's a person who's better than me in this dimension. But I just want to highlight both Dennis Breilau and Krishna are department chairs, and I'm pretty sure better department chair than I ever was. And so it gives me a lot of pride that there are people who are also following in my footsteps and trying to do better than I did in that dimension. Some things I'm proud of. I actually, I'm going to make it sound like I have both an award for research, an award for teaching, and an award for service. I actually have a research award for a distinguished paper in PLDI, which was about quantum computing. And that brings me to a story about Palsberg in Boston. I had been studying, I started kind of to learn quantum computing in 2018. We get to Palsberg, and I get email. So it was actually one of these conferences where there was no time to go. I had decided to go home Thursday evening, and then I realized that all the quantum papers are Friday, so I changed my ticket to Friday evening. It's all good, and then next day after buying that ticket, I get email from a very famous person in the community saying, we're going to have these overview sessions in the morning so that newcomers can go and learn about the area before attending the session. And I've been tasked to find somebody who can give the overview session for quantum. Please, could you do it? And I was thinking, this is fantastic. There's this senior member who thinks I'm good at quantum computing. And so I wrote back and said, sure, I will do it. I actually just changed my ticket so that I can be there. It's all great. And the story doesn't end there, because the next email I get says, thank you, thank you, thank you. You totally made my day. I had asked all the experts on quantum computing, and none of them could make it. So I actually also got a teaching award. What I did was that I got Tony Hosking's slides from his compiler course at Purdue, and then I was teaching that course for a long time. In fact, I still use some of the slides to this day. But I actually ended up getting a teaching award in some sense for Tony's course back then, which I'm very proud of. And then last year, I got a teaching award for my courses on quantum computing at UCLA. And so to me, those are sort of really highlights. I still try to do a good job of teaching, sort of notwithstanding all the jokes about midterms and finals and so on. And indeed, when I got this teaching award at UCLA, both Tong and John, my son, were there, which was an absolute highlight of my life, like today is. I also got a Distinguished Service Award from SIGPlan, which is something that really sort of matters a lot to me. Because SIGPlan is like my intellectual home, and I see many SIGPlan members sitting here. And I was just sort of thinking for a moment about what I did with all this service that people claim today that I've done. So I was department chair for 5 years, and I remember the highlight of that as that we were getting a new building. And there was this thing about pitching for people to actually want to go to the new building. And I found out, maybe too late, but I found out really what the main pitch was, which is that we designed the building so that all professors had windows, all the labs where the students were had huge windows. And I'm happy to say that Todd and I and more people are sharing one of those labs today, and I think it's very good. But there was a pitch to make there. Then I became SIGPlan chair a little bit later, and we had a problem. So for many years, many of you will remember Annabelle was our conference manager who did an outstanding job for us, maybe like above outstanding. And then just before the pandemic, as it were, changed her line of work from working for SIGPlan and whatever else she was doing to work for the government in the United Kingdom. And so we needed a new conference manager, which is like huge shoes to fill. We all loved Annabelle. That's the short story. And so I believe that one of the most important things I did for SIGPlan was to help hire Neringa, who is now running UPSLA, for example. And I think is doing a good job. Maybe it's just impossible to be Annabelle, but I don't think Neringa is Annabelle 2. She's like Neringa 1, and so I think she's really good. And so that's something there. Then I became, so you know that ACM has 38 special interest groups, of which SIGPlan is one. And there's a kind of a chair over that, who's like the chair of all the special interest groups. So I was that for 4 years. And so I was kind of the pandemic chair, and then there was the pandemic ended. And there was this huge thing about how much overhead to ACM should the SIGs pay. And so that kind of became a big thing. And I think that a thing that I helped contribute there was to basically get this settled so that we could work out what the overhead should be and move forward. And today, all of this is like completely solved. But there was sort of a lot of politics there. And in many ways, I think of that effort as probably a bigger political effort than even department chair moving to a new building and so on. And now I'm, for the 5th year, I think, on the ACM Council, which is like the top deciding body of ACM. I'm a member of the council, and the next thing coming up is open access, and which will affect all of us. So ACM sort of made a promise to the members that if it's sustainable, we will change to open access, which means flip the entire digital library to open access by January 1st, 2026. That's a year and a little bit. And so that's a huge thing going on at the moment, which is like it's a financial problem. It's a problem about how we all think about open access and all this. So that's something we are working on. And that's something I'm proud of being part of. It was actually, anyway, it's something that I think is really important for the community. I really believe in open access, and I think we should find a way to make it sustainable and make it happen. Okay, so now some things I've learned. I want to start with Peter Mosses. That's a very key piece of advice that I've taken with me, and I think that I've said to every single PhD student I've had, which is the question of what is good research. And the advice that I got is that good research has 3 components. It has to be new, it has to be interesting, and it has to be difficult. And of course, we can talk about what this means, but that's the yardstick I use to measure all research ideas and also kind of research outputs. And I think I see many nodding heads in the audience who have heard this advice from me. So I'm essentially just passing on Peter Mosses's advice, and I think it's just the right way of doing it. In all these years, I never came across better advice than that. And then I have still some advice of my own. I will just tell you my number one advice, maybe not just for research, but in general, which is make progress every day. So I have had so many experiences with taking on problems that are just too big to think about, too big to do in a day, or too big to do in a month. And so what do? And I realized over time that the way to do it is to make progress every day. And I think the way I learned it was, well, I would actually say, one way to sum up my whole career as a computer science person is to learn to do reviews faster, because there's so many papers to review. So how do you learn to be faster? So of course there are many ways. You can learn to read quicker, to take notes better, and all this. But there's a very important point when you have a big pile of papers, which is make sure that there's one fewer the next day, maybe more than one. But every day make the to-do list a little smaller. That's how I feel good about, oh, I'm actually making progress. The next day I look at the problem a little bit differently. This is how I keep myself mentally sane. ACM has a student newspaper, maybe you know, called Crossroads, and it just happened that the editor-in-chief was a UCLA student for the last while, and so she came to interview me, and she said, I just want the interview to be about your top 3 pieces of advice. And so there I was, and so I didn't give the one I just gave about make progress every day, but I gave 3 other ones that I'll just summarize. The first one is kind of what we're doing today, which is connect with many people. I strongly believe that we need to just be connected to as many people as I can. And there's a story that I've told, maybe again, all my students, I just want to repeat today. And that is that, so it's like you find yourself going to a cocktail party, you scan the room, and you see 5 people that I will concentrate on. The first person is somebody you would give your left arm to talk to. The next person is somebody you would very, very, very much like to talk to. The third person is somebody you really, really would like to talk to. The fourth person is like, okay, maybe not that important, but still. And the 5th person is like really way down on the priority list. 10 years later, it will turn out that it is crucial you're connected to person number 5. This has happened to me so many times that it's not funny anymore. And it's just, I'm telling you, just please connect with person number 5. That's my message. Second point is plainly care about details. I don't need to tell you this, or you are detail-oriented people, but I think care about details in what I write, care about details in what I read, and it's enriching for me. It's like I somehow love details in a way, and that I find that it just enriches life. And then there's the third thing, which took me decades upon decades to learn, which is how to be productive. Figure out how to be productive. For me, I finally realized that I like these 2-hour work spans. It's like sit down, work intensely for 2 hours, and then take a break. And the way I do this, I drive to Starbucks, and then I sit for 2 hours, and then I come back. And at Starbucks, nobody can find me. And so it's really intense, closed off, and progress. But this is something I encourage everyone to think about. Find out how to be productive. And then realize what it is. I don't even understand why I'm productive at Starbucks, but it's like when I walk in, I become twice as efficient as I normally am. And it's like, I don't need to understand this, I just need to go with it. And so that's what I'm doing. I also want to say that I do make lots of mistakes, and I remember one time we were at UCLA, we just had a seminar, almost everybody had left, and this was in the old days where the overhead projectors up under the ceiling, and we had thrown away the remote control, and I wanted to be a good citizen and turn it off, and I go up on the table, and I make all the wrong moves, and I fall, and I had blood coming out of my arm in a 90-degree angle. And I'm happy to say that Christian Goldhoff stayed, and actually maybe a few more people were there, got me bandaged off, and Christian went with me in the ambulance 2 blocks down the road to the UCLA emergency room, and I remember we walked in, and there was like this huge crowd of people sitting there and waiting, and they took one look at me and said, "You're coming in," and so we got me fixed up, and it's all fine. But Christian, thank you for being there when I needed you most. So I think I'll just stop with all the lessons and just give a couple of fond memories. So the following may sound sort of a bit self-congratulatory, but I will tell you because I'm hoping to convey a message. So I applied to business school. I was finishing up as department chair. I thought I want to do something else. Key people in the community that I set highly, particularly Mads Tofte in Denmark, and my former dean at Purdue, went to business school sort of later in life, and I thought if they can do it, I can do it too. And so I applied, and I get an admission interview. And so I show up for the interview not knowing what's going on. We sit down, and they bombard me. Well, one person bombarded me with questions for an hour, and it was like, I thought, okay. And then at some point, this person took this whole binder and sort of closed it, leaned back, and said, okay, one more question. And I thought, okay, so it's clear that now all this was just like, you know, beginning. Everything is in this last question. And then the person said, what does success mean to you? And I said, oh, that's easy. For me, success means that when I get up in the morning, I look forward to the day. And particularly what I look forward to is to work with you people, to my students, to my colleagues, and everybody. And I know that if I feel like this is what I want to do when I wake up in the morning, then I am successful. This is really where I want to be. I also want to tell one more story from business school, which is on my blog. So yes, I wrote a blog about business school. And the following is something that has become quite meaningful to me, and I'm going to change the story just a little bit. So first semester, we have quarters at UCLA. First quarter, we have data analysis. That's just the statistics, right? And so the professor is Rakesh Sarin, wonderful guy. He gives us a very fine statistics class with an eye towards business, statistics class with an eye towards business. And then, so he'd be a final lecture. We're kind of closing the books on the class before final exam. And then he looks around and then he says, so you can imagine my class, I was like the least qualified person there. CEOs, CFOs, COOs, people who own their own company. There's like full of those. And then there was just me who had just been department chair. Anyway, so he looks around and he says, you people juggle a lot of balls. Sometimes you drop a ball. That's okay. But one ball is a crystal ball. And that's your family and your friends and your former students. Don't drop that ball. And so I just want to say, in a way, thank you for not dropping me. Thank you for remembering me today. It's been a wonderful ride with all of you. And I can say that I'm remembering you. And you are a very meaningful part of my life. And I just want to say sort of how I keep organized. So it's actually true that I keep 5 diaries every day. So I just want to tell you, I write down everything. Actually, most importantly, every night I write down whether that day I have no emails in my inbox when I go to sleep. I've done that the longest. I write down everything I eat. I write down how many hours I put into work. I put in how many hours I go to the gym. That's the simplest diary to keep. And then I have one more diary, which is more like sort of observations. That is like nice. My son graduated from high school. I put that in. That's very nice. So I keep this every day. And I'll tell you why it's important, just in case somebody wants to be inspired. The one about writing down how much I work, it's very good, because sometimes I think, my goodness, I didn't do much last week. It's like, why did I waste last week? But then I can look back in my log and see, actually, I put in a lot of hours last week. Maybe I didn't make as much progress as I would like, but I really tried. And for me, that's actually enough to keep going and to not be too worried about life. So anyway, to my students, I'm proud of you. I'm happy we're still connected. Thank you for doing this. And thank you for your friendship, everybody. And I just want to tell you how perfect it is that this day is today. I don't think so many people know, but my lucky number is actually 2. And today is 10/22/2024. So 22, there are already 2 there. And 10, that's 2 in binary. So it's just perfect. So thank you, everybody.